I'm sure that you could enlist the help of your wives.
Phoenix Squadron is enlisting help from another rebel.
So, I enlisted Gabriel's help to make it happen.
So she enlisted the help of Bobby.
The Lord commanded Moses to enlist his brother's help.
I've also enlisted a little help.
And to help me do that today, I've enlisted the help of a friend of mine, Leighton Williams.
To do so, I've enlisted the help of the godfather of musical theatre, Lord Andrew Lloyd Webber.
I've enlisted the help of Lord Andrew Lloyd Webber and Sir Tim Rice, and I am going to be starring in my own musical.
Police hope to enlist the help of Captain Amazing in the search for Hunt.
Else, I told Mom and Dad about this, and they said you need to stop harassing.
I probably won't pursue it, but it's a viable career option.
Call Mitchell, tell him I lied.
It seems like a viable option.
We think now that a lobectomy may be a viable option.
I need to know if boxing's gonna be a viable option.
I don't believe that's a viable option at the moment.
Why do people think eating paper is a viable option?
This heart is a viable option.
Wait, here? Negative. That is not a viable option.
Stormcloud may be our only viable.
Sardonic humor is just my way of relating to the world.
I'm clever and free-spirited and a little bit sardonic.
He writes those editorials for the school paper.
Yeah, he makes a lot of references.
Bread. Exposed to the sardonic barbs of my cousin Sanjay.
You in here because Lisa's behavior has become wry, sardonic, and yet...
Or lightly sardonic or glibly nihilistic.
We admired his sardonic wit.
Leaving Luke as the only viable option.
Well,
The assumption that her father wasn't a viable...
Zero viable options.
The best option, but viable.
Online courses are a viable option.
You have two viable options.
I need at least one viable option.
Neurostimulation is no longer a viable option.
I don't have any viable options in mind, so.
Not a viable option.
The current climate is no longer a viable option.
If your dreams don't pan out and Nietzsche's no help, it's a viable option.
you know, being in Knoxville with my family seemed like a much more viable option.
Killing is still a viable option in your mind.
I think Christmas might actually be a more viable option than I thought.
Mr. President, I was assured by Alaska Northern that the barge was a viable option.
Research site. We could also basically require them to do some what we call green chemistry research, especially if there simply aren't safer, feasible alternatives to a chemical in a product. We may require them to actually.
That's a viable option for all of you.
There are no feasible alternatives to diesel fuel in the short term. There are no feasible alternatives to diesel fuel. As with many other goods and materials in short supply, there are no feasible alternatives to diesel fuel in the short term.
Throughout the process, Tinbergen struggles to find feasible alternatives to pure observation.
Except now we're up against a wall of our own making, and we're not going to evolve enough new intelligence rapidly enough to be able to deal with the many complexities of the problems we're generating.
This is the notion that there are no feasible alternatives to address the same scientific question in a manner that poses less risk than does the proposed approach.
So we do here, where we're all dealing with the complexities of being socially distanced.
About anyone else talking about that kind of training and getting workers prepared, because I saw some questions about that in the chat about making sure the people working on the front lines are equipped to deal with the complexities of this issue.